to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, the radio chick, Annie Ubellis. Join Annie on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone line. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the radio chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcast in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
let it go. Tell them I'll always be watching, looking over them through it all. This is my last call. Feeling the fight for me. Do what's right for me. Choose the light for me. Don't ever forget me. I'll always be watching, and I'll be there when they fall. This is my last call. Those who serve beside me, and who held that thin low line, stand tall, stand strong, hold on and abide. Sorry I let you down today, please know I gave my heart. This is my last call.
Dave Bray, last call, and you can find that at davebrayusa.com. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina, up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, half a dozen other places I forget. Just check it out. Go to our website. It's the name of the show. Put a hyphen in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the one that screws up the mostest, it seems like today, Annie, the radio chick, along with my intellectual and fantastic co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. I do have to apologize, Curtis. I started the whole start of the show with myself muted, and I was talking into the mic, and I was talking into empty air. So I apologize to the listeners that were trying to figure out what the heck was going on at the start of the show. That is my fault. Absolutely all my fault.
Was two of them.
Oh, man.
I didn't know what was going on.
Well, I want to welcome everyone that is there listening in the chat room, as well as those that are listening in the studio. If you are listening in the studio and you want to join the conversation, please remember to press 1. That way we know that you want to join in, ask a question, make a comment, and we appreciate that. Just remember, take your index finger and put it to the number 1 on your dial pad, and we'll be happy to welcome you. But Curtis, because I messed up the dedication, I'm just going to redo it as it is now. And today's show is dedicated to Sergeant Luis A. Maldonado. If I can get this right, Sergeant Luis A. Meléndez-Maldonado of the Puerto Rican Police Department, Puerto Rico. And this is from Law Enforcement Today. Jose L. Calderado Lopez, Superintendent of the Puerto Rico Police Department, sadly reports the death of Sergeant Luis A. Meléndez-Maldonado. Sergeant Meléndez-Maldonado, 51, was shot and killed while he was conducting a narcotics trafficking investigation. Agents arrived at the scene of an apartment complex where a search warrant raid was to be conducted. A suspected lookout opened fire with a high-powered rifle, killing Sergeant Meléndez-Maldonado instantly. As the shot rang out, 2 other subjects emerged from a nearby minivan and opened fire on the remaining officers. All 3 of the suspects were wounded by agents that returned fire. It was later determined that the 3 suspects were at the complex to murder their rival gang members. Sergeant Meléndez-Maldonado served with the Puerto Rico Police Department for 30 years. He was assigned to the Humaco Drug Division. Sergeant Luis Meléndez-Maldonado, gone but never forgotten. End of watch Wednesday, October 12th, 2016. And this dedication is a little difficult to do because, unfortunately, I could not find more information about Sergeant Meléndez-Maldonado. Normally you can read of what family says or friends say, but I went to the memorial page, odmp.org, Officer Dan memorial page, and here written on the wall by John F. Hooper, titled "Rest in Peace, Brother, and Watch Over Us." I fight not for glory or fame, for they are momentary. I fight for those who can't. I fight for justice. I fight for the oppressed and the downtrodden. And if I should lose my life for these just causes, then I have no regrets. For I serve to protect the innocent. It matters not where or when, for evil knows no boundaries. Be it fire, flood, or the threat of tyranny, I will not flee. Justice is my weapon. Faith is my shield. Hope is my armor. Cry not at my passing, for it was my honor to fight for you. Shed not tears of sorrow, but tears of joy, for now I stand with God. Also written on that page by Sergeant William Foley of the Chicago Ridge Police Department in Illinois. Sergeant Meléndez-Maldonado, I thank you, sir, for your service. So many years of serving the citizens of Puerto Rico, and to have it end at the hands of a killer is a tragedy for your family and the department. Hopefully, the killer never sees the light of day as a free man again. We will keep you in our thoughts. Please watch over us as we carry on. And also written by retired Chief Stephen Marshall of Washington, New Hampshire Police Department. A police officer should be remembered not by how he died, but how he lived. A great man has gone to a secure, a safe place for the rest of us to follow. Thank you to you, your family, and the Puerto Rico Police Department. Our country is much less safe without you. Rest in peace, brother. Vaya con Dios, hermano. Today's show is dedicated to Sergeant Meléndez-Maldonado. And in that dedication, I will play the warrior song to honor him and all those first responders that are out there every day protecting and serving, as well as the brave men and women in our military that have served from the birth of this nation to today and until tomorrow. God bless them all.
With a need to bleed, when the light goes green, best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to my yang to see. Put a grin on my skin when you come to me. Cause I'm weird, I'm a one of a kind, and I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in the fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me death before you make me whole. I'll feel the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior, this is my song. I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking in the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of
nightmare come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be is the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth, where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Roll to the gods of across your path, and my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
We're not just going to shoot the bastard. We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy bastards.
Hello?
Hi, Dr. London?
Yes, this is Herb London speaking. How are you?
Hi, Herb. How you doing? This is Annie with Southern Sense.
I look forward to chatting with you.
All right. I've got a dedication music playing, and you should be going on in just a few seconds. Okay?
Okay, fine.
All right, that is the Warrior Song, and we're back. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina, half a dozen other places. Just go to our website, give it a break. Just go, it's the name of the show, put a hyphen in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick Annie, along with my intellectual and handsome co-host Curtis C.S. Bennett. Curtis, we've got a great guest on the line. Are we ready to rock and roll with him?
I'm ready. Let's bring him on.
All right. Introducing to our listeners once again, Dr. Herb London of the LondonCenter.org. Good afternoon, Dr. London. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing well. Hope everything is going well for you.
Actually, I've had one of those days where I've had only 4 hours sleep. So if I sound a little wackadoodle, I am just extremely overtired. But we'll get through this. And we'll have some fun. You know, you've got a great book out, which really, I call it a handbook every American should have on their shelf, called The Encyclopedia of Militant Islam. Tell us about this book and why you co-wrote it.
Well, I wrote it largely because we're going to be fighting a long war, and there are many Islamic groups that represent this kind of militancy. And I think it's important for Americans to understand what kind of foe we face. As I say, a long war, this is a generational war. So it's important to understand the enemy, the nature of his tactics, where he gets his funding, where the enemy is located. And so what we're talking about here is an understanding, a deep understanding of what kind of threat the United States faces and where it comes from.
This is really true, because everyone turns around and says, the second you talk anything whatsoever against Islam, radical Islam, you're called an Islamophobe. You're called a bigot. You're called a hater. You're called all these different names. But there is this element out there. And whether or not Obama calls it ISIL or ISIS or the Daesh, it is a definite threat to our national security.
Well, you're talking about people who believe that if you do not submit to their way of life, you die. Now, it seems to me that Americans better start understanding that there are some people across the globe who want to kill you. And so we've got to take whatever measures are necessary in order to protect ourselves. It's not a question. Americans are not a warlike people. We don't want war, but it's apparent that war wants us. It's already on our shores. In San Bernardino, in Orlando, in 23rd Street in New York, in Chattanooga, in Boston. I mean, we have been facing a threat. It's time for Americans to understand that it's not simply in Syria and Iraq. It's in the United States itself. And so unless we come to grips with that, the United States is going to be a very vulnerable nation.
And that's the unfortunate part about it. And on your website, there was a gentleman, I'm trying to see if I can remember the name of the article. I have it here. That's not it. This is it. Peter O'Brien wrote an article which I found very interesting, and he equated what is going on today with 1848. What was going on in 1848 that our national security is that bad?
Well, 1848 was a rather extraordinary year, in which you had the Springtime for Nations. And in the Springtime for Nations, there was widespread discontent. It was the emergence of Marxism. It was the end of the divine right of kings. It was the challenge of royal states across Europe. There were people demonstrating in the streets. There was chaos and, in fact, a lot of death. And what you had is all of the assumptions of the past were put into question. We are facing a year like that in 2016, where all of the assumptions of the past are now called into question. What do we mean by a president of the United States who may indeed be facing a criminal indictment? What does it mean to be an American that is now facing a threat from abroad as well as a threat internally? What does it mean to be a militant Islamist who's trying to integrate into the United States? I mean, these are questions that were not asked before but are being asked now, so that the assumptions of all of our past are really being called into question during this year.
You know, it's interesting because, past presidents, including Teddy Roosevelt, knew that Islam was going to be a threat to the United States, because Teddy Roosevelt passed an immigration law that says if you believe in polygamy, you cannot come to the United States. And that was done specifically to keep Muslims out of the United States. Why is it that we don't understand the danger? What is with our psyche that our government just refuses to see the peril that we're in?
Well, the President of the United States obviously has not provided the leadership that is necessary. I mean, Americans, by and large, as I indicated to you before, do not want to feel as though they are in a world war. But we are in a war. But Americans don't want to feel that way, and the President is not saying that. I mean, after all, what is he saying? These are outliers. There's violence. There's extremism. But he's not saying this is militant Islam. He will not say that. And as long as he won't say that, if you can't define the enemy, then obviously you can't fight the enemy. So Americans, by and large, do not understand the nature of the enemy and the threats we are facing. He is part of the problem, but the problem, of course, also exists largely because the United States has retreated from world affairs. During the course of that retreat, we find ourselves in a position where the vacuum that has been created by the United States is filled by our enemies, whether those enemies are Iran, Russia, China, but those vacuums will be filled. Just as there isn't a vacuum in nature, there isn't a vacuum in international affairs.
You know, it's interesting because recently Britain had the Brexit vote, and that was rooted a lot in the fact that they had these migrants coming in from the Middle East, and Sharia law is now being entertained in the British courts. They've got no-go zones. They have certain towns where the Muslims have completely taken over, where there were rape crowds. Horrible things are happening. And finally the British realized, hey, listen, what we have with no borders with the European Union is why we have this problem here. And now we have President Obama and Secretary Clinton saying, oh, let's increase the number of these refugees, these Syrian refugees. But we only want the Muslim ones. We don't want the Christian ones. What does this spell?
Well, it's an amazing development. It's an amazing development. I mean, frankly, we accepted 36 Christians from the Middle East who are now facing genocide, and we're taking in thousands of those from war-torn regions. We don't even vet these people. In fact, we cannot vet these people because there's no paperwork. It's not as if they come with passports. So, I mean, what did you have? We are accepting people into the United States who may be potential terrorists, and at the same time, we are not accepting those who embrace the traditions of this nation. It is an odd way to conduct immigration policy.
Do we have an immigration policy? Because from what I see, we've got sanctuary cities.
Well, I mean, the immigration policy, I'm sorry to interrupt, please excuse me. I said the immigration policy is largely a question of having no borders, having porous borders. Look, the strength of Donald Trump in this campaign, despite the fact that he's a flawed candidate in many ways, is the fact that he understands that Americans are simply fed up with those who can cross our borders with impunity. That is, they challenge the sovereignty of the United States, break our laws, and it's perfectly acceptable. Now, this doesn't make any sense.
You know, becomes a protected class. You know, you can't touch them. You know,
That's right. It's a protected class, exactly, and that's the right way to put it. It's a protected class, and they're no longer called refugees. They are now people who are just undocumented. So anyone who comes across the border is an undocumented citizen. It's absurd, absolutely absurd. And that is, I think, part of the emotional response to the Donald Trump campaign, where he has come out, probably more than any of the other candidates, to say we must change the way in which we engage in taking people into this country.
Yeah, we used to be quite stringent on vetting people when they came in, whether they came through Ellis Island or some other port. You had to have someone to sponsor you, to vouch for you. God forbid anything happens, that you commit a crime, that person is just as much responsible for the crime as you are. You had to have a job. You had to have a place to live. You had to be able to say, I will not be on the government handout for 5 solid years after I arrive here. And then you have to pledge that you will become an American citizen honoring her laws. But that's not required anymore. Even though it's still in the books.
Roosevelt, I think, you made reference to Teddy Roosevelt before. He coined the expression Americanization. And he was very wise in suggesting that people who want to come here, want to embrace our laws, want to become part of a Judeo-Christian tradition, who want to embrace our Constitution, who will adhere to the methods and the procedures that exist when it comes to naturalization. We want those people in this country. If you come here with the understanding that you're going to change America, you're going to speak your language, but not speak our language, if you're going to tell us that American laws are unacceptable, there's a higher authority, namely Sharia, that we respond to, you're not welcome here. You should not be welcome here. Teddy Roosevelt understood that. Unfortunately, our present president does not.
Yeah, it's sad, though, because last year I had an imam stare me directly in the face, waving the Constitution in the air as he said, Sharia law will never surpass the Constitution. And yet we see example after example where they do try to impose Sharia law above the Constitution.
Well, I mean, if you have a congressman from Minnesota who says, I'm not putting my hand on your Bible when I take the oath of office, but I want a Koran, I mean, what are we saying? We're saying that different kinds of traditions are perfectly acceptable in America. But there is one tradition, and that is the Judeo-Christian tradition, which has established this nation. It's what our Constitution is based on. It is ostensibly an Augustinian document that comes out of our traditions, not out of Islam. So the notion that somehow you put your hand on the Koran and you're an American is absurd.
It is. It absolutely is absurd.
London.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Dr. London, if Hillary should win Tuesday, we would have a constitutional crisis if she's indicted. Is there any way for her to get out of that, or is she going to continue to be the Teflon Donis?
Well, Kurt, you ask a very valid question that a lot of Americans are asking at this moment. Number one, I doubt whether there will be any indictment, even though there probably should be, in large part because the fix is in, and Loretta Lynch is not going to indict Hillary Clinton or call for a grand jury. That will not happen. Second, the President of the United States, who is there to January 20th, could provide a premature pardon, even if there was on the Hillary Clinton front. But, and I think this is important, but 50% of the American population will believe that she is a criminal, that she has broken statutes in the American law, and that she has broken the statutes associated with the State Department, that she has violated the national security provisions of the United States. As a consequence, if she is President of the United States, there is absolute stasis. There is no change that is possible. There will be an investigation conducted by the House of Representatives. Hillary Clinton will not be a president capable of making any decisions at all. So, again, I think that we are entering a very dangerous phase in the constitutional history of this country. And the point that you've raised, I think, is an excellent one. What do we do? Well, it is going to be a crisis. I don't think there's any question about it. If Donald Trump gets in, there will probably be an investigation of Hillary Clinton. It's not going to go away. And what we are facing is a nation that is utterly divided and a nation that now believes one of the candidates running for president of the United States is a criminal. I mean, think about that one. So I think that your point is well taken.
You know, when I first heard that Comey had reopened the investigation, I had turned to my husband. I said, listen, this is a ploy. It's going to be more smoke and mirrors, because what he's doing is giving President Obama a reason, excuse to pardon Hillary or to give her immunity, and it'll clear him of any problems. It'll clear her of any problems. It's a ploy. And I still think that it's exactly that. It is a ploy, an excuse for him to use his executive powers to get himself off the hook and to get her off the hook. What's your opinion?
Well, he used her personal computer. He actually used a fictitious name in doing so. So that we know. And if she's culpable, then the president is culpable, which raises a lot of interesting questions. But the point that I would make, which I think is really very, very, I think, profound, or at least I hope it's profound. Preet Bharara, who is a special prosecutor looking into the Anthony Weiner case, came to the conclusion, in looking at his hard drive, that there were 650,000 emails from Hillary Clinton on it for Abedin, his wife, who shared the computer with him. When he went through that, he didn't want to do anything. But if Preet Bharara could provide this information to the public, what would it look like if the director of the FBI did not act? He actually knew this weeks ago, even though he said he only knew it days ago. He knew this weeks ago. And so what he was doing is he was trying to take advantage of the fact that this information was now readily available, and if he didn't act, he didn't send those letters to the congressional leaders, he would be in the position of being covering up to Hillary Clinton, or appear to be covering up to Hillary Clinton. So that's why he came out with all of these letters, and that's why he felt he had to say something. If he didn't act, people would say, this man simply covered up for Hillary Clinton. Now that he's acted, the Democrats are saying, well, you've thrown the race to Donald Trump. But again, it's not a question of throwing the race. It's a question of revealing what Preet Bharara had already found on this email system of Abedin.
You know, what's curious is now everyone's throwing the Hatch Act at Comey, saying he violated. Harry Reid openly in Congress accused him of the Hatch Act. But 5 seconds later, I see the next scene up in the news is President Obama out there stumping for Hillary. Now, he is an employee of the executive branch. Isn't he blatantly violating the Hatch Act?
Well, you could certainly make that point. And as I indicated, since the president admitted that he used a fictitious name in relying on the personal server of Hillary Clinton, he too violated State Department as well as national statutes on this matter. So, yes, the president is culpable. That's one of the reasons why this case isn't going any further. The president is not going to say to Loretta Lynch, okay, go ahead, provide a grand jury for me, and we'll see what kind of evidence we have. There will not be a grand jury. There will not be a prosecution. There will not be an indictment because the president won't allow it.
You know, you wrote an interesting article on your site, the reemergence of tribalism. And when I think about it, and as I was reading it, I found it fascinating because this is what we're seeing here in the United States. We're under assault by the elitists that want us to become globalists. But the United States, an actual true American, a red, white, and blue American, there's no way that they would ever subject themselves to globalism. It's our fierceness of independence, our fierceness of our Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, that which makes us uniquely American.
Well, you stated it very well. I mean, look, I think that's exactly right. Americans are not the kind of people who are going to be globalists. The President of the United States may say, I'm a citizen of the world, but the citizen of the world doesn't get his passport from the world. He gets it from the United States. And the citizen of the world doesn't get his rights from the world. He gets his rights from the United States. So the president, I think, has made a very silly observation that he is a citizen of the world. And, of course, you hear this from many people who are one-worlders. I'm not a one-worlder. I believe that the United States is unique. I believe that Western civilization is superior. And I think that we have to do everything in our power to retain both our independence and the traditions of Western civilization.
Well, I think this is also why Donald Trump is so unique in this election cycle, because after we've been through 8 years of Obama and of the globalist this, globalist that, and you got to take in all the refugees. You have to do this. You are part of the world. You're part of the global system. Americans, I think, have finally had said enough is enough. This is not the principles we were founded on. The principles is for independence, self-reliance, and so forth. This is why I think Trump is resonating, because he's saying what everyone else is afraid to say.
Well, I think what Trump is, as I indicated before, despite the flaws and the lack of articulateness and the fact that Mr. Trump, I think, has a great many difficulties of developing an argument effectively. The truth is he's an American. He is an American first. He cares about the country. He cares about the future nationalist position of the United States. And that, you're quite right in suggesting, this has resonated with the American people. Now, there are some Americans, elitists, who see the world differently. But frankly, I think it's time for the United States to assert itself as a nation, quite different from others, and as a nation that provides rights to Americans because God provided those rights. Government can't take them away. There is no one who can take those rights away from an American. You might be a European and have those rights removed by your government, but not in the United States. So we are, in many respects, different from so many other nations on the globe, and it's that difference that we want to preserve.
Yeah, you call us the tribe of the forgotten Americans. And in the last two paragraphs of this article, is very powerful. It says, there is power in these words for the basis of tribalism as ancestry. The past doesn't die. It reemerges as tribal loyalty, for better or worse. And yes, there is an arrogant oligarchy believing it is endowed with the right to influence the behavior of others. These are the contemporary philosopher kings whose only philosophy is power, whose statue is rarely regal, but they stand on the pedestals of privilege to tell the world we know best. Mr. and Mrs. Forgotten America disagree. This tribe is ready to assert itself on the political stage in a manner that is disruptive and romantic. Mr. Smith goes to Washington, and what happens when he arrives, nobody knows. Donald Trump is the Mr. Smith.
Well, thank you very much for repeating my words. I do think that there's some power in them, and it's because it's Mr. Smith that goes to Washington, the forgotten American, who by and large has been ignored by politicians. Nixon talked about the silent majority, but this is more than a silent majority. These are people who represent this country. They fight our wars, they pay their taxes, they take care of their kids, they abide by the laws, they're not in jail, and they're ignored. No one cares about them. They are forgotten. Now, Roosevelt made an awful lot of the words forgotten American by relying on the plutocrats who were then running America. And there were people who obviously resonated to the Roosevelt argument. I think there are a lot of people in America who feel as though they are ignored by our government, ignored by Washington, ignored by the elitists, and are turning to Donald Trump as an answer.
Yeah, when they impose the LGBT communities, I have to have the bathroom I feel that I should be using, where the rest of us are saying, hey, wait a minute, I don't want my little girl going into the bathroom and finding a man in there claiming that he is a she. The moral values of our...
It's crazy. It is crazy. Look, why would a government of any kind be concerned about where you pee? It is sick. This is really perversion. And imagine you've got a 7-year-old girl who's studying ballet, decides to go to the ladies' room in the gym and finds that there's a 50-year-old pervert in there who thinks that he is really a female. This is so bizarre. And why would the government, why would the President of the United States make this a stance? Why would the NFL and the NBA say, oh, this is appropriate, we're not going to play our games in North Carolina? Are you kidding? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, you have someone like Colin Kaepernick, and I have another name for him. One of the letters is changed in his last name, and it's not polite. But you have someone like him. Yes, he has the freedom of speech, and he has the right to express himself, but we do not have to pander to him and to those of his ilk. If he doesn't want to stand for the national anthem, do not disgrace the rest of us. There are men and women that died to protect our country. So respecting the flag and respecting our veterans is paramount to me. It is absolutely disgraceful. There are other ways in which to protest, but he shouldn't be doing it.
Well, look, you and I are on the same page, and look, I couldn't agree with you more. Everyone says he has the right to express his views. Of course he does. The First Amendment doesn't say that you have to be smart. The First Amendment says you can express your views. So you can be stupid and express your views. But what disturbs me is that the NFL will say to the Dallas Cowboys, well, you can't put another star on your helmet. That's unacceptable. But the behavior of Kaepernick is acceptable. Why is that the case? When I look at that flag, I'll tell you what I see. I see a red, I see a white, and a blue. That red, for me, stands for those Americans who gave their lives in Normandy and in Vietnam and across the globe to preserve liberty as we understand it. The white stands for the purity of our Constitution and the way in which our founding fathers established America. And the blue stands for the tears of mothers who had to bury their sons too young. So when you tell me you don't like that flag, you don't respect that flag, I say to you, go to hell.
Oh, you don't have any opinion on this matter, do you? No.
I mean, I don't. Look, I'm an old man. I don't mince my words. So you're getting it unadulterated.
As I'm fond
and look, this is the way I feel about the Kaepernicks. I mean, it's ridiculous. Of course he has the right to be stupid. I wouldn't dispute that. And he certainly has the right to express his opinion about Black Lives Matter and all the rest. But I have the right to express my views as well. So just as he can say what he wants about America today, I can say what I want about Kaepernick.
And the fans don't have to give him their dollars when they go to the game. So the attendance is way down, and the fans are saying, we don't condone this behavior. We understand what he's doing, but now you're not going to get our money.
Well, I was just listening to a radio program, and as you know, the NFL is going downhill rather rapidly. And there was a lot of discussion about fantasy football and why people are not interested in the NFL. Talked about the quality of the games. But the one thing that no one said on this panel as I was listening to a radio show today is that Kaepernick has made Americans very, very angry. And a lot of them are saying, I'm just not interested in the NFL. Now that, I don't know if it's the entire explanation, but surely that is a partial explanation for why the NFL is not doing well. So if I were the commissioner of football, I would say, look, you want Kaepernick? Fine. Let him engage in his activities in the locker room. Let him talk to players if he wants to. But why the demonstration on the field when the flag is being raised and the Star-Spangled Banner is being sung? I don't understand that.
Yeah, and you recently had that. Curtis, let me just this one point in, and go ahead. Also, you had that singer that kneeled as she sang the Star-Spangled Banner.
I would never sing. I mean, again, these displays are obviously designed to make an impression, leave an impression. And I'm saying that, of course, people you don't have to tell me about the First Amendment. I understand the First Amendment a lot better than Kaepernick. But the fact is, I also have the right of the First Amendment. And that means that I can say that these people are jerks, or I do not want them to perform in my presence. If I paid for a ticket at an NFL game, I don't want to be offended. So again, I have the right to express my opinion about this matter. And people are expressing their opinion by not buying tickets.
That's true. That's true. We have countries like China, Iran, and Russia who seem to be challenging us militarily because they no longer fear us. Do you think this would change under a Trump administration?
Well, first of all, changing the way in which the Russians now feel would be a rather difficult task. Putin has been given an extraordinary opportunity to expand the reach of the Russians in a way that Peter the Great and the Tsars only dreamed about. And that was to have a solid warm water port that could not be challenged by the Sixth Fleet. The Russians presently control the Eastern Mediterranean, in large part because we're not there. There is no competition. The Russians control that area. They have a strong horse in the Middle East. We are irrelevant. How could this change under Trump, assuming he's president? It would require building confidence among our allies. The major task of President Trump is to go to Egypt and talk to Sisi, and go to Saudi Arabia and talk to Salman, and go to Jordan and speak to the king. He's got to reestablish confidence that the United States stands by its word and that the United States is a power that could be contended with. We have to build up our military. Trump is absolutely right about that. We are flying 1950s aircraft and the B-52, the F-35, which is the most expensive aircraft ever constructed, $1.5 trillion. I said $1.5 trillion, and the plane can't even perform the kind of missions that it was assigned to. It was a plane designed by committee. So again, what the President of the United States has to do is, one, recognize the fact that we have to once again reestablish our military preeminence. Two, we have to establish ties to our allies that have been obviously broken. And then three, the President of the United States has to instill a sense of confidence in the American people, that the United States stands for something, that the United States is willing to defend its positions. So, I mean, it's an enormous task. Can Trump do it? I have no idea. But I can tell you that it's a major task before him.
And right now, we've got our military so badly demoralized that now it's official. Now they're actively recruiting transgenders to go into the military. But I thought the standard is that if you're on any type of medication or you're not physically fit or whatever, you're rejected from the military. And yet you have these individuals going into the military, and it's creating havoc.
Well, of course it would. I mean, you got somebody go into a shower. This person says, well, I used to be a male, but now I'm a female. Come on. I mean, what you're doing is you're trying to create social engineering in an institution that's designed to prepare people to fight. That's the military. We are not trying to create a different kind of social organization in America through the military. We're trying to give people an understanding of what they are fighting for and the tools to engage the enemy. That's what military is about. If you're not doing that, then I don't know what you're doing. But obviously, it has very little to do with the Obama agenda and the military today.
Oh, it's amazing what I've seen happen, and I'm slightly younger than you, Doctor, but from what I've seen when I was growing up to today, it is a scary world out there. I don't know how people expect to raise their family in this society that is being forced upon us. People know more about Kim Kardashian than they know about who their elected official is.
Well, you've seen the dumbing down in America. I mean, every old-timer says that about the previous generation. This time, however, I think it's true. I think we have seen a dramatic dumbing down. I know that when Waters gets up and talks about Waters' world, it appears to be cherry-picking. But if people at the University of Oregon cannot tell you who the first president of the United States is, we've got a real problem. And that problem, of course, goes right to the essence of what happens in our schools, our colleges, our universities. And I've been a university professor. I've seen it. I know what's going on now. You can take courses that are obviously trivial. You can take courses that are narrowly specialized. But if you ask people about American history or world history or Western civilization, they don't know anything.
No, they don't, and it's a shameful part. And Common Core has a lot to do with it. I've seen some really dumbing down of students. I mean, I tell the story about a cashier at the grocery store was scanning items as the woman was checking out, and that divider you put between your items you're buying and the person in front of you, she tried scanning that. She was then goes and asked for a price check on the divider. I mean, this is what we're
well, I mean, look, anything is possible today. This is what we are facing in America. So you've got a population that is dumbed down. You've got a population that doesn't understand the threat that we are facing. You have a population that, by and large, has simply become complacent. And you got a population that I think has been facing a debased culture. If, in fact, the king and queen of American culture are Beyonce and Jay-Z, then you understand the nature of the problem. I mean, who's invited into the White House?
Oh.
I mean, Minaj goes to the White House. Kendrick Lamar goes to the White House. Jay-Z goes to the White House. What does that tell you about the president's standards? When Donald Trump made rather obscene and, in my judgment, uncouth Michelle Obama said, I am shaken to the core. I am shaken to the core. Shaken to the core? Had she ever read the lyrics of Kendrick Lamar? Does she know about these people who talk about using any kind of pipe or device in the orifice of females? Does she, if these people are invited to the White House, does she know what they stand for? Has she read Beyonce's lyrics in her song? I mean, this is unbelievable. She's shaken to the core. Donald Trump, but not shaken to the core by the people who are invited to the White House?
No, and then, of course, the Muslim Brotherhood was invited to the White House for a dinner, and John McCain and my Senator Lindsey Graham sat down and broke bread with the Muslim Brotherhood in the White House, and then they dare to turn around and tell Egypt how they should handle the Muslim Brotherhood, get them as part of your government. Are you crazy? This is nuts.
Well, this is the institutional madness, absolutely. And you can find with some Republicans, absolutely right. It's not simply the Democrats. But this is what I regard as an institutional madness. Even within our own Congress, there are people who do not understand the nature of the threat. And so what you have in Homeland Security and a variety of other places, of course, and in Abadan, these ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, which, of course, is the father and mother of all of the extremist organizations around the world, including Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was formed with money from the Muslim Brotherhood. And now the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States says, well, we're peaceful. Really? They're peaceful? Well, ask any member of the Muslim Brotherhood, do you support Hamas? Or are you opposed to Hamas? Just ask that question. Any member of the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States. The Muslim Brotherhood is now banned in Egypt. It's banned in Saudi Arabia. It's banned in the United Arab Republic. It is banned in Jordan. It is not banned in the United States.
Oh, it's a shame that it isn't. And we have to get someone in the White House that understands what the circumstances are and ban the Muslim Brotherhood, ban CARE, because CARE is just an outreach of the Muslim Brotherhood. Matter of fact, the new Black
Panthers... It is the law...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It is the law... It is, I was going to say, it's the legal entity of the Muslim Brotherhood. You're quite right. And there's also there are now obvious ties between the Muslim Brotherhood and Black Lives Matter, where they've stated that we stand together on our position on the Palestinian state.
And this is another problem, not supporting Israel. How all of a sudden everyone is just abandoning them. They're going on this boycott, can't do business with them, don't send them any money, don't give them any aid, blah, blah, blah. Leave them because they won't work with Palestine. And yet when the Palestinians, before this Palestine issue, when they lived in Israel, they had better rights, they had better jobs, they were more secure, they were safer. But now all of a sudden you try to split them apart and they're under the thumb of Hamas and Hezbollah and they're worse off, far worse off. But yet no one wants to admit that.
Well, I wrote a book about this called The BDS War Against Israel. So I do admit that, and I do think that you're absolutely right. The entire BDS movement, which is a fraud on its face, is designed for one purpose only, the delegitimization of Israel. That is to demonize the Israeli state. That's the purpose. And they've made great headway in doing so. So we are entering a very, very dangerous phase in the Middle East. Although the Sunni nations have come to the realization that Israel is a far better ally than almost anyone else in the region because they are opposed to the real enemy, and that's Iran. And so what you have is the emergence of a counterweight, a defense condominium made up of Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Bahrain and Israel. The fact that Saudi Arabia would send a military delegation to Jerusalem just a couple of weeks ago is one of the most interesting developments in the last 50 years. If someone would have said to me 5 years ago that the Saudis and the Israelis will work together developing defense preparations in the Middle East, I'd say you're on hallucinogens. I mean, it's not going to happen. And yet, interestingly, it has happened because they share the same enemy. And that enemy is Iran and the Iranian imperial ambition.
Well, Dr. London, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. We enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I'm recommending everyone to go to your website, which is londoncenter.org. Also, check out your book, The Encyclopedia of Militant Islam. It is a handbook a lot of people should have on hand, sitting right next to the copy of the Quran, which I've got over here. I want to thank you, and I invite you back in the future.
Well, and I'm always happy to be with you. And one of the things I discovered today is that you're my sister from a different mother. So thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure being with you. And Curtis, thank you as well.
You should say younger sister.
Chatting with you again.
You said much younger sister.
Much younger sister. Right. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. London. You have a great day.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Now, we got our next guest up. Let me bring him in on the line. He's always someone fun also to have on the show, John Lofgren. Good afternoon, John. You have the book, Atlas Shouts, A Modern Patriot Calls for Action, which is, again, another handbook that good conservatives should have on their shelf.
Yes, good afternoon, and great to be here.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to get through my notes to get to
okay.
the stuff I put aside for you. Now you are an interesting person, and I actually had downloaded one of your songs, and I downloaded it on the computer, and I don't know where the file went. Otherwise, I was going to introduce you by having you singing, but I don't know which folder it went into. It went into, I don't know, some like the cloud. I don't know. It's somewhere out there. But you are...
It's probably in your downloads folder. Check your downloads folder.
Well,
okay.
Right now, I actually work off of 3 different computers, so it's on one of the 3. I just don't know which one. But you have a great book, Atlas Shouts, where you talk about what is wrong with the political system, what is wrong with going on in America, and then you break it down and give solutions. You talk about the Columbo deduction and the 11 tactics of deception. Tell us about the Columbo deduction.
So, yes, that's a great starting point. Columbo, of course, is the 1970s TV detective series that ran, I think, just a couple of years. But Columbo's calling cards, his plot drivers were that he was, first of all, he was always disheveled and dressed poorly. His coat was always wrinkled, and he always smoked a cigar, which bothered everybody he was around. But more importantly, Columbo had this interesting style where he, when he was around people he thought might be involved in the crime, he would innocuously ask questions and wonder aloud about why this and why that. And he would always get the suspicious people, either the culprit or somebody who was trying to protect the culprit, to answer questions and see where they started evading the answers to the questions. Because what Columbo knew was you could tell a lot more about a man sometimes by what he's hiding than by what he's talking about. So what I did is I started using Columbo questions on social media to talk to some of the people I had debated with. And I had an estimated 5,000 debates over 10 years because I was online debating on political and investment forums for 10 years. And I finally tried this Columbo idea. I tried asking questions. And what I found out is all the people who are liberals who you're debating with all exhibit behavior that indicates they know the right answers and they just don't want to talk about them. They deliberately avoid and deceive you in debate to try and hide the truth, whereas a conservative in debate is always trying to expose the truth. They have a completely different mindset.
Well, Herman Cain calls it, they sin, S-I-N, and each one letter stands for something. He says when you do get into a debate with the liberal, the first thing they will do is switch the subject. And when that doesn't work, you keep on bringing them back on subject and on topic, they will then ignore the facts. And when that doesn't work, and you do hit them with the facts and say, here, and you can cite where the facts are coming from, the last thing they will do, just before they realize that they've completely lost the argument, is name call. And 9 times out of 10, they'll call you a Nazi, a Hitler lover, a bigot, a racist. They'll call you all these horrible names, and that's when you know you definitely won.
That's correct. And again, he has a 3-letter version of what I found 11 steps. I actually took really diligent notes as I debated these liberals over the years, and I started taking notes about all the tactics they used. And there's actually 11 different tactics. It's very similar to the ones Herman Cain came up with, independent of me. So, of course, independently arrived at conclusions are some of the most powerful, right? So the fact that I came up and saw the same things as Herman Cain did is powerful evidence that we're all seeing a common shared behavior among liberals that preclude us from ever having a meaningful debate with them.
And what are these 11 things?
The 11 things. Let's see. Do I have them all? Ooh, you're gonna make me go through the book here. So let's look this up. I got my book right in front of me, and it should be real easy. There are 11 tactics. Let's see. Waiting Argus plus page 110. Because I don't have them all memorized anymore.
I put you on the
but
spot.
You can imagine some of them. What's that?
I said I put you on the spot.
You put on the spot. It's all good. So here we go. You ready for the 11 tactics? And I'll put a little note about each one. The first one is the most common, the delusional evasion, I call it. That's where they say you're crazy or you need to get help. Or what are you talking about? In other words, they try to portray that, that as if you said something completely nonsensical. And when I come back and follow up and say, you said what I'm talking about as if you didn't know at all what I said, can you tell me exactly where you lost the thread, where I lost you in my dialogue? And they always change the topic at that point. So when somebody says, what are you talking about? A liberal says that, they're completely throwing a fake dialogue at you. So that's number one. The second one is the friend-threat evasion. In other words, you'll lose friends for trust over this. I've had a number of them say that on things. Your friends are all going to abandon you because you're talking about this. You're such a nut. The third one is the incredulous invasion. That's like, how could the lie, if Obama told a lie about this, how could it go so far if it was false? It's true now. Everybody believes it. How could you possibly think it's not true if so many people believed it? And, of course, I found out behind the scenes they didn't really believe it. So, number four is the true focus.
Well, I just want to go back to 3 because this is what we're seeing coming out of this administration and out of all the lackeys on the left, that they say the same thing over and over and over again. And after people hear it over and over again, oh, no, well, I heard it on TV, so it must be the truth. Or I saw it in the newspaper, it must be true.
Right.
It was up on Twitter, so it has to be the truth.
Yeah.
When the exact opposite is the truth.
Yes, and if you ask them, hey, have you fact-checked it to see, can you confirm where you saw this? They have no interest in fact-checking. And I saw David Mamet, the playwright, I saw one of his quotes somebody said today, and I haven't been able to verify he said this, but it sounds like something he'd say. And he said, basically, to be a liberal, you have to pretend to not know a lot of things. And that's what they do. Martin Luther King called it conscientious stupidity is what he called it. It's playing stupid about the right data.
Yeah, and I was debating someone the other day, and the person cited an article written in The Onion. And I says, really? You are citing The Onion, a satire paper that is a spoof? 95% of what's put in there hasn't got a thread of truth to it? You've got to be kidding me. That is your citation, The Onion?
All right. Well, in the last couple of weeks, and I've been talking with liberals who are still quoting the mainstream media, and yet we have email after email that indicates the DNC is telling the media what to post. So here they are still quoting the media, which we know is lying and covering up. And I keep asking them, how? We already know these media sources are liars. Why are you still quoting them? Well, that really frustrates them there. So that's the incredulous evasion, I call it. The next one is the true focus evasion. In other words, the true focus evasion is where they start reciting a bunch of things that are really true, but they have nothing to do with what they just said that was false. They just flood you with a bunch of links or hot links to some other articles, or they begin talking about meaningless trivia related to the issue. But they won't go back and talk about the thing that was in doubt that you asked them about. Number 5 is the why evasion. So, hey, this is not going to go anywhere. Why are you chasing it? There's no reason to suspect. Even if you did know Obama lied about something, where's it going to go? Why are you doing this? You're wasting your time.
You mean like
that's the why evasion?
Like the famous Hillary Clinton? What difference does it make?
What difference does it make is perfect. That's exactly great. Why are you pursuing this? What difference does it make if an ambassador got killed and his body dragged down the street like a dog, and I didn't send any aircraft in to help him? What difference does that make? That's exactly right. The next one is the bad intentions evasion. And the bad intentions evasion is where you say, you're just really out to make someone look bad, aren't you? So in other words, you want to make somebody look bad by exposing they lied, as if telling a lie was something that wouldn't be bad if you didn't expose it. So the next one is the shut up and evasion, the shut up evasion. In other words, they don't want you to talk about it, so they basically tell you to be quiet, or they change the topic to something else and they won't talk about it anymore. So that's kind of number 7, I call it. I'm sorry?
I mean like what happened to me when I confronted an imam in Love Thy Muslim Neighbor seminar, and when I kept on asking questions with the Quran in hand and citing different parts of it, someone started to stand up and tell me to sit the blank down. Shut up and sit the blank down.
Yeah. Right. Just shut you up. Whatever you're doing, just shut up and stop telling the truth.
Oh, it hurt my feelings so badly.
Oh, I bet you were crushed. Yep. And then the next one is, of course, we all hear this one a lot, is the ridicule evasion. They use mockery. And mockery, of course, if you look in the Bible, the word mockery is all over the Old Testament about staying away from mockers and that mockers are bad people, because that's what they do when they see the truth. They begin mockery. So that's a very common one we all get made fun of. And the next one is the flee evasion, which flee being they just leave the conversation and they say they don't have time to talk anymore, so they disappear. Number 10 is the anger evasion. Get angry and indignant that you would say something so. How can you say something so mean-spirited, Ann? You must hate the poor people. So they get angry that you insulted somebody. And I have an old investor guy that I debate with and frequently one-on-one, just to keep me in practice, because I know he's going to defend everything the leftists do, and he won't get mad, so I get with him. But what I found out was that, like one of his things I wrote the other day that it was fairly conservative, I go, what you're posting there is something that's just easy to prove that it's not true. And he goes, oh, come on now, you're calling me a liar. And he started getting indignant. And I go, Jim, I'm not calling you a liar, because I've said this same thing on 4 other forums and nobody else gets mad. Why are you getting mad? And he gave it up right there and quit talking about it. So it was a fake anger, completely fake anger when they do that. And if you just call them out on it and say, hey, how come I can say the same thing to 5 other people over on a conservative forum and nobody seems to get angry about it? Why did you get angry? Tell me what part of it made you angry, I'll ask them. And they'll never tell you what made them angry. They just got angry for some reason. Okay, and the last one is the equivocation evasion. We see this one a lot. It's everyone is lying, so it's okay. And I added this as the very last entry because right before my book went to press, I found that there was a distinct change in the liberals' debating tactics on social media all over. Within a 2 to 3 month period, I saw the entire left-leaning social media contingent change from saying Obama didn't lie to, yes, Obama's a liar, but they're all liars. Every president lies. It was almost like a light switch that I saw. It was completely different than the first 4 years of its presidency. And Ann, you know what I did? I started thinking, man, this is too odd that this happens all at once. And I started looking on CNN. And about 2 months before I saw this, I saw CNN did an article. And what was the title of it? All the presidents lie. And it proceeded to tell you how every president, going back to Washington and Lincoln, everybody's lied. So it's okay if Obama lies. So they're directed by CNN, and I realized the whole left is a lot more connected to their media than we realized, because this was a very noticeable change in the media on multiple forums.
Well, recently there was an article that came out of another WikiLeaks, and they named 65 mainstream reporters that were meeting with and or coordinating offline with top Hillary advisors. They sat down with John Podesta at a dinner, and the topic is how to sell Hillary to the public. And some of the names, ABC, Cecilia Vega, David Murr, Diane Sawyer, George Stephanopoulos, John Carl, Bloomberg, John Hellerman, Mark Halpern, CBS, Nora O'Donnell, Vicki Gordon, Brianna Keeler, David Challen, Gloria Bozier, Jeff Zellini, John Berman, Kate Baldwin, Mark Preston, Sam Fest, Daily Beast, Jackie Kucinich. Gee, doesn't that name sound familiar? Like a certain politician that tried to run for president? And you've got the Huffington Post,
Yep.
you've got MSNBC, NBC, New York Times, People, Politico, Vox, Vice, and these are just the top 38. Rachel Maddow. Oh, that's a real surpriser there. I mean,
yeah, what a surprise there. Yeah, who would have guessed that?
So, of course, if any one of these people say something, it's about Hillary, it has to be the truth. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. There are perfect references for reporting on us exactly what we need to know at any given time. So and to tell you the truth, it's been a big boost for my book sales right now. Is that with these WikiLeaks coming out and revealing the press is so in bed with the DNC. If you'll look in my book on the last 5 or 6 pages of my last appendix, the last thing I wrote was section 11.14 was the decay of the leftist media. And by the time I went to press, I had already started collecting one whistleblower after another that was indicating the press had been subjugated by the media, intimidated with lawsuits. In fact, one of them is Jill Abramson. Jill Abramson said, we've been sued 8 times by the Obama administration, and Bush never sued us once. So here's a liberal editor of the most liberal paper in the U.S. admitting that they're being bullied by the Obama administration, yet this never made the mainstream media at all.
Yeah,
so, I was already on to the fact that the media was corrupted, but that was one of the hardest things to convince people, and these emails have made it a lot easier.
Yeah, you also have Cheryl Atkinson.
Everything.
Go ahead, Curtis.
I'm sorry?
No, Curtis.
John, this is the co-host.
Hey, Curtis.
I'm going to take this in a little different direction. We know that from time to time the Obamas and the Clintons like to reach out and get Hollywood celebrities to endorse them, especially during campaign season. And these are people who all of a sudden become experts on politics and the environment and whatnot. How is it that some of our population, all of a sudden, they look to these people as experts?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I've kind of written this is not, described as succinctly in my book as I'm going to describe it now. But I realized in a recent essay I wrote about a month ago that the whole reason for humans to interact in a social system is completely different than a capitalist system. In a capitalist system, everybody interacts with other humans because you need something for them. You need to go to the hardware store. You need to go to the grocery store. You need to get a loan out for a house. You need to build a house. So we have all these things that you and I have to go out and put our feet in front of each other and go find somebody or dial them up. And we have a need for other humans to serve us. And we become interdependent in capitalism. But in socialism, the only thing you have to do in socialism is you need to call up the politician to get the stuff that you need. And you begin to care less and less about your fellow human because they don't need to supply anything for you. You just call up your favorite politician and say, I need more money, or I need a car, or I need a cell phone. The government starts being the provider. And this leads to a whole different dynamic going on in the human race, the human population of any country. Capitalism, you talk to other people because you need them. In socialism, you don't need anybody else. All you need is a politician. So the people become beholden to the politician that takes care of them best and will say and do whatever stupid thing they're required to do to get the new extra benefit or the gay right or the black right or the Hispanic right or the women's right. People are rewarded to be selfish.
It's amazing because it's herd mentality. It is the herd mentality. Just go along to get along. And whatever the majority says, that's fine. But that is socialism. It's not true capitalism.
And another thing, Ann, you bring up herd mentality, but really when you think about it, it's just short-term greed. The welfare recipient has the same motivation to go along with the system right now as the millionaire who's got money in the stock market and wants them to keep printing money to keep the stock market floating. Remember the old investor I told you about a few minutes ago? Mm-hmm. He argues exactly the same argument as the dumbest liberals I talk to on Facebook or anywhere else. He's all about, we got to keep printing money. It's keeping the economy going. It keeps people building houses and stuff. And I'm like, it may help 10 people, but it hurts the other 10,000 that didn't get the help. but I can't get through to him. He just stops arguing and does one of those 11 tactics I told you about.
Yeah, that is true. You know, they switch and bait. And I had a debate with a family member shortly after the Supreme Court decided on same-sex marriage. And I said, wait a minute. They've already got the right as a civil union where government will recognize them as a domestic couple with all the rights and privileges of a domestic couple. Whether you're a man and a woman as a domestic couple or same-sex, the rights will exist as long as that state recognizes civil union. And every state recognizes civil union. It's how they define civil union, because you have to go and get a license before you can become a domestic couple. You have to go down there, pay your little fee, have the clerk of the court stamp it, and say, voila, you are now spouse and spouse. So, you know, you don't need to define the word marriage. Once government defines the word marriage, it defines religion, and it violates the First Amendment that government shall not create a religion. But by government defining marriage, they are telling the religion what they can and cannot do. And no one can understand that argument. And everyone turns around, oh, no, you're bigoted against the LGBT community. No, I just don't want my religion to be coerced by government.
Well, you say they don't understand it, but you know what, Ann? I was fortunate enough in my courses. You know, one of my reviewers, Dr. Lyle Rossiter, who's the University of Chicago psychologist, he's a PhD from University of Chicago. He wrote a book called The Liberal Mind, and it's a book about political madness. You should check it out sometime. And Dr. Rossiter gave me stellar reviews, and he said you did a very epistemological analysis with this, and I was always very proud of using that word. I'd never been called epistemological in my whole life. So first I made sure it wasn't a dirty word, and then I realized I got a really nice compliment. So,
what does it mean? I don't know.
I found out, epistemological means you've done a rigorous and disciplined and organized study of how liberals argue. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Epistemological means kind of like you did a scientific methodical approach.
I just thought maybe you pissed them off.
Yeah, well, as I said, I had to look it up to make sure it wasn't a dirty word. So, no, I didn't do that. He was very impressed with my work because my research work ended up coming up with the same conclusions as his more clinical analysis. So it was very much another person coming from another direction, just like Herman Cain did, and finding out how liberals argue is unique. So let me get to your point, though, about the gay issue. Here's what I found. And I started arguing as many times as I could with anybody who was gay on Facebook and anywhere else I could get them. When I could get them one-on-one and they didn't have to show off for all their friends, I'd always get them off on a sidebar. Because when you can get people, maybe you remember the expression, if you give a man a mask, he'll tell you the truth, right? Mm-hmm. So I was giving him a mask where nobody could see him. And he was a mask because he didn't know me. And every gay person I argued with about gay marriage, when they say, first they call me like you said, they call you a bigot. You hated gay people and you were a Christian nut because you were against gay marriage. And I'd say, no, I wasn't against gay marriage for that. I'm against for other reasons, but I can tell you right now, I know a bunch of atheists that are married and they don't care about religion at all, and they're married. So this can't be a religious thing. And they were, okay, I'll buy that. They kind of go along with that. And I'd start arguing. It's like, so why do you want gay marriage? Why is this so important if you can get a union and take care of everything you need? Well, you know what, John? I just want the benefits.
Hey, John.
So that was all they did. When it got down to brass tacks, all they cared about was getting benefits.
But they have
and
that
with care about our marriage word.
They have that if they have a civil union.
But they're rewarded by the politicians to go along with it. Well, now you're into the second level of the problem. And the second level of the problem, and I'm getting a little bit theoretical now, a theory. I can't prove this, but I'm pretty sure this is true. I'm pretty sure that the Democrat leadership team wants to divide the Christian church in half. Just like you saw their point in one of the emails that they were trying to divide the Catholic Church, right? Well, so I'm pretty sure people at the highest level of the Democratic Party are sitting in the back rooms, just like the email showed, and have been concocting schemes to divide the Christian church. And gay marriage is one they figured out they could do it on. They said to themselves, why don't we tell everybody gay marriage means you hate gay people, and we can get them to browbeat the Christians into being hateful people. And maybe when Hillary's in office, maybe we'll drag them into court like what was the trial? The Scopes trial on evolution. We'll drag them into court, and we'll prove that they hate gay people when this is all over, and we'll prove that Christianity is a hateful religion. Because what we'll do is we'll send some gay people in all the churches, and when nobody hires them, we'll come back and say this is a bigoted organization, and we can make this happen. So beware. I think the Democrats have big plans to make Christianity look really bad, and I think gay marriage and abortion were both schemes just to create rancor and distrust of Christians, to make us look bad in public.
Well, that is the truth. That is the truth, because they do. Chris, go ahead, and we got a call up on the line too.
Yes, Curtis.
Okay. I'm concerned about their plans for next Tuesday. You're a computer engineer. How easy is it for the voting machines to be hacked, and if they can be hacked so easily, what can we do to prevent that?
Well, the only thing I know, and I wrote out to my governor and a bunch of other people, is I think we ought to cancel all the early voting and do all the voting on one day like we used to. Issue court injunctions in 50 states right now to stop this, because I think they're stuffing these ballot boxes with Democrat ballots and they're throwing away Republican ballots like we've seen on these videos behind the scenes. So that's one problem. And then, of course, we've seen the experiment on Josh Bernstein's page where they have people throwing away votes and stuff. So we know they're capable of manipulating the machines. I think there's been a test on one of the machines that shows it'll drop votes, and the machines are traceable back to George Soros, one of the biggest liars on the planet. So I think I don't know what we can do except we can pray, first of all, and we can have people in all the voting places really keeping an eye on what's going on. That's all we got to pray for, is they're vigilant. And I see a lot of turmoil coming up here. The election is just another opportunity to antagonize and disrupt the United States for Obama and the Democrats. And this is just going to be probably the biggest mess you've ever seen coming up. Yeah, I don't know what we can do except I would say court injunction and everybody vote on one day. That's the only thing I know of, and you got to do that preemptively right now.
Yeah, it's funny because just the other day I was watching the TV, the news, and Hillary Clinton goes, and Trump wants to intimidate voters by having poll watchers. And I said, what?
Exactly, yeah. Now we're intimidators. Yep.
Yep, because you're going to have poll watchers. Hello, poll watchers is a legal voluntary position. Each state has different rules that cover it. And in my state here in South Carolina, they need a letter from a state party that certifies that individual is authorized to be there to be a poll watcher. There's a specific time they are there, and they cannot interfere with any voting. Basically, they can, to the voters, they can greet them and say, "Good morning, how are you doing? Nice weather outside, isn't it?" And that's it. You can't intimidate. You cannot interfere with the vote at all. You're just there to make sure the laws are followed. But instead, the left is going, well, Trump wants poll watchers, so it's got to be bad.
Yep. That's part of their tactics. And, I mean, pretty much any time you're arguing with a liberal, you can almost find a lie right in their first sentence. So if you sit and talk to a liberal and say, wait a minute, why is it so bad that somebody's watching? Tell me some details about that. And what you'll find is they'll get angry and go off and change the topic, and they'll never really tell you why it's dangerous at all. It's just another one of their trumped-up fight fake, you hate black people or you hate women because you're against abortion. There's always a hate thing involved. So this is just another tactic. Don't even imagine for a minute that they believe what they're saying. The best thing you can do is just call them out on it, ask them a question, a Columbo question, and what you'll find out is they'll just run off and scurry away. They have no basis at all for being angry or claiming intimidation on this.
Absolutely. Well, let me bring on this one caller because they've been on hold for a while. Area code 314. You're on the air live with Southern Sense. I'm your host, Annie, the radio chick. Our guest is John Lofgren. To whom am I speaking?
Well, my name's Pianki. I'm calling from the Midwest here in St. Louis area.
All right. Hello, Pianki. Got a question?
Well, I got a question. I got some complaints. And I don't know if any of you have paid off your mortgage 15 or 20 years ago, and you worked hard all your life and done the right things, whereas you can retire comfortably. I'm telling you, because of these new regulations that they've got put in place, you will play hell Betsy trying to get a mortgage now without producing documents that you no longer have. And that's what I'm finding. I have a grandson that's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, attending LSU. And I wanted to get a condo so he could stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are asking, and see, the thing is, they want you to have some sort of mortgage payment history that they can be. Your credit can be 800 something. All the other bills, they want you to have some kind of mortgage history of payments. Well, hell, I haven't paid a mortgage in 20 years.
Because you own your house?
Not only do I own it, I built it with my own hands.
Yeah.
The last mortgage payment I paid was back in 2000. The house I bought when I was right out of high school back in 1970. Mm-hmm. So I asked, well, these are new regulations we got to follow. These regulations they don't take into account that people get old. They put their property into their children's names so they don't have to go through probate when you do finally leave here and all these other things where they try to tax the heck out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, now all of a sudden you don't have the proper payment toward a mortgage. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And let me tell you something else that's ridiculous,
too. Ask you
Go ahead, sir.
Ask you a question about, though, because you said that, it's pretty normal to ask for a payment history because people want to see if you're reliable. But, if you already own your house and you don't have, I would think the next thing they would ask for is you put down some property as collateral. You said you already built your house, okay? Put your house, other house as collateral, and we'll let you buy the condo. Why wouldn't they do that?
Well, see, I put that house in my daughter's name years ago. Back
you don't have it, okay? I got you.
Right, because that's the thing that people like to do. Well, I did. I figured I'd do that. I bought some investment property, and I sold that right in 2005. I bought that in '98, sold in 2005, just when the market was getting ready to crash. Well, heck, the banks, Bank of America, they're searching through the archives trying to find the payment schedule. I got the payoff sheet, but they want some records to go through that. Now that's half the problem. If you got time, let me tell you about this one. With the conversations about illegal immigrants, you will pay high hell and water again if you, a United States citizen, marry a foreign spouse, fill out the proper documentations, pay the fees, and try to bring them into the U.S. legally.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
I married
upside down, man.
I married a foreign spouse in 2012, and I'm still trying to get her to the U.S.
Yep.
I could have brought her across the Mexican border illegally.
She'd already be here. Yep, and she'd already be here and been fine. You'd probably be getting some welfare for her, too, or something like that.
You're absolutely right if I wanted it.
You could have got anything you wanted for it if you did it the wrong way. But if you do it the right way, you catch hell. That's part of the disruption of the left that they really want to do. They want to make things tougher on the people who live by the law and make it easier on the people who don't live by the law.
And I never in my life seen as much attack on a candidate like they throwing on Donald Trump. Every news program that leads off, they're denigrating this man. I attended his rally here in St. Louis, and I'm African American. I don't have rope burns around my neck. I don't have any snakes through my side. Wasn't tarred and feathered. So and right on the ticket, you get it off the net. It tells you on the back what you're allowed to do, bring in, and so how you should behave. All that you should know before you go in there. You can't understand why people who don't like the man, why they keep showing up at his rallies.
Because they're disruptors. That's what they're. Remember, on people on the left, you got to remember, their sole intent of every public interaction is what I call to create disruption and deception. That's all they appear in public for. None of them want a better way of life for everybody. It's all about aggregating power and feeling like they're in control by just doing something. It doesn't matter what they did. They just want to do something. Change.
Yeah, they always want to experiment something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They always want to try a new experiment, like stimulus. Stimulus has never worked in the history of mankind. No government has ever invested. No government has ever invested a country out of a recession or a depression. Never. So this thing was destined to fail from the start, and there's a reason they did it. And we can talk about that some other time.
Well, and I feel sorry for people that stuck with this Obamacare with these increasing deductibles.
Yep.
How in the world you pay $9,000 or $10,000 a year deductible come December the 15th when you meet it, then all of a sudden you got to start all over again January the 1st.
Yeah.
It was never intended to work. It was always based on 4 lies, and it was never intended to work. The sole purpose of the Obamacare was to create a false system that crashed the insurance industry so they could turn it all into government care in the end game anyway.
Panky, I want to thank you because we got another call. So I want to put you on
thank you
mute.
very much.
Thank you for the call.
Need more programs like this.
Thank you.
For calling.
Thank you. Oh, man. That was a great caller. Let me bring the other individual in who's been on hold for a while. Area code 816. You're on the air live with Southern Sense. I'm your hostess, Annie, the radio chick, with John Lofgren, our guest. To whom am I speaking?
Hi, Annie. Thomas.
Oh, Thomas. Hi. Didn't recognize your phone number. What's up, Thomas? You have a question for our guest?
Just a comment. I've been sitting here. I've been listening since the since your last guest, and I'm enjoying the interviews. But I wanted to share this because your guest brought up an interesting point about the ballot stuffing. And, oh, by the way, I'm at the other end of the state. The previous caller was in St. Louis, and I'm at the western end of the state in Kansas City, Missouri. So straight down I-70. Anyway, and like him, I'm also a conservative. And anyway, so conservative of color. Here's the deal, because I've been noticing that the news media just been kind of downplaying a major bombshell that's just kind of been dropped. And that is in terms of what exactly was in the Anthony Weiner, Huma Abedin emails. And there is some speculation that the same thing that they're accusing Donald Trump of being a kitty rapist and all this stuff, that Hillary and Bill Clinton are actually tied into a child porn, a pedophile ring. And so I'm sitting back just reading this, and I'm like, so if she does get elected, what do we do? You talked about a constitutional crisis, as many have said, and then Al-Qaeda talking about they want to attack us, or so they say in the news, want to attack the U.S. soil a day before the elections. Am I the only one that, just for conspiracy theory's sake, just like Obama, Hillary, all them individuals, they probably helped form ISIS? I wouldn't doubt if they've also been given weapons to Al-Qaeda, or if somehow the weapons that we gave to the rebels in Syria and Iraq and other places ended up in the hands of the rebels. So I just want you all to kind of comment on that, and I'll listen on mute, Annie. So.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. But there is proof that under Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State and under John Kerry as Secretary of State, arms that we have given to the Syrian rebels have gone into the hands of the Daesh. They have gone to our enemies. We have actually armed our own enemies. So this has been proven. We know that this is a fact. But you want to comment on that, John?
Yeah, there's two things about this. Is one, it's pretty much confirmed that these air-to-air missiles got in the wrong hands before Benghazi. So whether they got in the wrong hands on purpose or accidentally on purpose is debatable. But also worse than that, there's an article around 2012 in Politico that talked about, it's called Shut Out of the Cabinet. And it's an article about how Obama's cabinet members were hardly consulted at all in his first 4 years. They met with him like 2 or 3 times a year, and the meetings were inconsequential. And Obama's been off doing something. a lot for the last few years, but he hadn't been meeting with his cabinet members, and he hadn't been coordinating with them. So my theory is behind the scenes he's meeting with a lot of bad people. And one of the bad people we know he's met with is 3 times Muslim Brotherhood came to the White House. We know that. That's been documented. They came in the front door, and the Dalai Lama had to go out the back door on one of his visits. So these people, Obama is meeting with the bad guys, at least at the White House, probably more. And we should assume, given the level of lying we've just been exposed to in all the WikiLeaks, we should assume the worst, not the best for him. He is the worst possible person. He may be the most evil character in all of mankind right now in history. He's a $1 trillion liar, is what I call it, because he lied about not prosecuting the banks, and that was $1 trillion of crime. Oh, and I can't name another $1 trillion liar in the history of the United States at all. So, yeah, there's probably bad stuff going on here. And, yes, we are probably sending some weapons to the wrong side. It's already been documented, as Annie said.
Yeah, and everyone's turning around. And as you mentioned in the book, George W. Bush lied about the weapons of mass destruction. Back in 2003, it was MSNBC article that I read that 200 tons of yellow cake uranium was retrieved from Iraq. And over a 2-year period, all that yellow cake uranium that could be easily processed into bomb materials was very carefully sent from Iraq up, and Canada bought it. So, yes, there were weapons of mass destruction. We know that. We know that there were mobile labs. That there are, satellite photos seeing these labs going over the Syrian border. So we know where the labs went. We know that they had the uranium. So, yes, there were weapons of mass destruction. But yet the media kept on... The mantra is always there were no weapons of mass destruction. But there were. We know there were. But the media won't talk about it. Again, deception.
Yeah, there's a second level of proof to that, too, Ann, is that before Hussein was executed, there's an interview with him where he said that we actually created fake evidence. We created that evidence because we wanted Iran to believe we had a bomb because we were afraid they were going to attack us. So Hussein had a vested interest in a program to create the illusion of nuclear weapons to the point that it convinced the UN solely to convince Iraq that it was not to attack because we'll nuke you. So there's you can say the evidence was fabricated, but it wasn't fabricated by us. It was fabricated by Hussein.
Yeah. Now getting back,
proven. That's proven.
It is proven. Now, getting back to your book, you point out all the things that are bad, the GDP, inflation, unemployment, but you said also in your book there's ways to fix it. And there's the economic way, not the Keynesian way, using the Austrian method, an Article 5 convention. Now, there is... 2 different groups. One is IamAmerican.org that a friend of mine runs, and there's another one of the what is Meckler's? Bill Meckler has it. Oh God,
COS. It's just called COS or COSP.
Oh, the Convention of States. These two are going through
project, yes.
Right, and I believe I Am American has 27 states that have already passed a referendum for a balanced budget amendment. They're on the road to getting it done. But how do you see the Constitutional Convention being done?
Let's see. I don't know who's going to win out on that. I haven't studied the other one enough to see, but Convention of States has a very similar aim, of which a balanced budget amendment could be part of COS as well, so they're not in conflict. That's the good news. So what I see playing out is, Convention of States is in the rear position now, but it's picking up some steam as well. And more importantly, I think I have to say I like the Convention of States, their memorial they created. That's what they call it, a memorial, to guide each Convention of State contingent. The memorial created gives them a little more latitude to do something called reduce the overreach of the federal government. So anything that goes on that gets power outside of Washington, I think is what we have to do. a balanced budget amendment will be a waste of time, and I can tell you why right now. The reason why is because they've already moved tons of spending off the budget in Washington. There's off-budget and there's on-budget spending. So the liberals have already preloaded to evade a balanced budget amendment, and they did this about 20 years ago when the first idea of a balanced budget came up. And what they've done is they've taken all the things that are supposed to be done in the Constitution, and they've called that discretionary spending. In other words, you don't have to do it. And then all the things that aren't in the Constitution, like Social Security and Medicare and all the benefits, those are called mandatory spending. So basically, they took a bunch of stuff off budget, so a balanced budget amendment won't help at all.
Oh, wow. Now
They'll play games. They'll just play games with what is the budget or not. And I've done that. I was in the Defense Department in Lockheed Martin. I worked there for years, and we knew all kinds of ways to get around budget constraints. That's a fun game to play.
Oh, man. Now, that's scary. So how would you fix it?
Mm-hmm. I think we need to fix it with structural changes that re-implement or implement some new checks and balances, because what's going on right now is things are out of balance. You obviously know the Supreme Court is just making up rulings as they go. They don't often the rulings are the opposite of what the law that was created. Like the rule for guns says the right to own a gun shall not be infringed. That's 100% measure there. It shall not be in any case at all by the federal government. But yet we have tens of thousands of gun laws on the books. So obviously the Supreme Court has reversed the ruling already without even with only by judicial decree they've done it. The way you fix this is you got to have somebody be able to take some people off the Supreme Court or cancel a decision. And the best way I can think of right now is allow governors, the 50 governors, to vote by majority vote to remove any ruling or remove a justice on the Supreme Court that hasn't done something to protect states' rights. That's the first one. The second one I would do is cancel Amendment 17, which is the amendment that created that ended appointed senators. We have to go back to appointed senators from each state, because a senator, by the definition of the founders, is mandatory to be appointed. You cannot elect them, because if you elect the senators, then the Senate becomes just like the House, with just elected members. And now instead of a republic, you have a bicameral democracy, where both houses of Congress are both elected members. That's a bicameral democracy. And if you look back in history, democracies fail rapidly. They always fail. There's never been a successful democracy in history. But republics have a very good reputation. Sparta, Carthage, Rome, and America up through 1913 were all republics and very stable.
All right. And what's the next thing you would do?
Let's see. Do I have another one? Oh, yeah, I would have an amendment. I've recommended an amendment to mandate that the Supreme Court or any court has to rule based on the original intent of the legislators that wrote the law. So they can't go out and look at the UN, they can't look at international law, they can't look at anything except what the original writers and arguments for the law came up with. This will force the courts to stay on ruling based on what the legislators intended, instead of them making up something that the legislators never intended and saying that's what the law is now. And we've seen that over and over, right?
Yeah, John.
So, and that's easy to do, by the way. A lot of liberals will say, "Well, wait, we can't mandate construction. It's difficult. How are you going to do that?" And the way I flush that out is I tell them that's real easy. I'm going to start repeating back to you the opposite of everything you tell me, and see how quickly you get frustrated. And that'll show you that you want original intent on everything you say. Yes,
John.
Yes,
with the situation we have in Washington now, where it seems like POTUS has a lot of influence and control over the Justice Department. Do you think there should be another way we can appoint somebody to that office besides the president picking it?
No, I mean we could, but I don't think that'll help. I mean, what we have is a structural problem.
Yeah.
We have a structural problem because the Supreme Court. Because here's what can happen. What if we did come up with a rule that said, okay, maybe the governors can kick the Justice Department. Well, the Supreme Court can come around next week and say, oh, that you wrote an amendment up there. That amendment really means something completely different than what you said. It means that the president still gets to assign it. They'll just make up something about what the intention was and ruin every law crafted. That's why Congress has no pride anymore, because their role in the U.S. government has been completely bypassed. The Supreme Court can change the meaning of anything they write now to be something else. They're worthless. They're a worthless organization right now.
Well,
it just seems like the Attorney General just influenced too much about the executive.
What's that again?
It just seems like the Attorney General of the United States seems to be influenced greatly by the executive branch.
Yeah. Well, they report to him, sort of. I think, Obama is the chief police officer, and the Justice Department is supposed to report to the more in the judiciary branch, right? But yeah, there is too much going on there. But that's a little bit of a joke, Curtis. And here's why it is because first of all, whoever is appointed over there does not have to be beholden to the president. But what happens with Loretta Lynch and Holder to the same extent is he gives them broad latitude to make decisions that he likes. And then when everybody gets upset, they don't blame him; they blame the Department of Justice. And Obama just says, "Whoa, that's just that's what they decided, and that's the way the Constitution is written." He creates the stupid, completely ignorant, obviously ignorant argument that they're doing what they're supposed to do, but they're not. And this is all part and parcel of Obama's plan to create rancor. Like right now, the FBI and Justice Department are quote unquote fighting. There's no fighting going on. That's a pre-planned thing. Obama blame justice or blame FBI for this and wash his hands as if he was just this, executive and I'm carefully watching over everything. And he just wants that riffraff and rancor going on because that allows him to go and blame somebody else when things don't go right.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the clock. We're down. Go ahead. Finish up, John. I was just going to say we're down to our last 6.5 minutes.
Say if Obama wants to overrule justice and FBI on anything, he can at any time. That's all my last point was.
Yeah, and I believe also this whole thing was also planned, very carefully planned, so that Obama has a reason to pardon her or give her blanket immunity, and then he can walk away scot-free also. So I do believe
or just delay the he could delay the election or delay the installation and say the election wasn't fair if Trump wins now because it's been the FBI didn't do their job right, so they disrupted the election. So we're going to have to delay the election just for a week or two, not very much. This is not a coup. We're not really changing anything. That's what he always says, right? We're not really changing anything. So this could be the start of a coup going on here. This could be really bad. We need to stop underestimating how bad this guy is.
Well, John, it has been a pleasure. Been a pleasure having you on. Your book is Atlas Shouts. People can get it up on Amazon. You are up on Facebook under Atlas Shouts. So if anyone wants to reach you, they can go there. So I want to thank you for joining us. We've had a lot of fun.
It was fun, and it's always a pleasure talking to you and Curtis. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you. All right. Curtis, we're down to our last few minutes here, and we'll be back here next week on Tuesday. You'll be poll watching, but Cal will be guest co-hosting with me, and we have Wild Bill who's going to be with us, and also Matt Fitzgibbons is going to join us also. And next Tuesday is Election Day, so it'll be Election Day special. Wild Bill has some awesome rants he wants to get off on, but we'll have a lot of fun on Tuesday. And I want to urge everyone to get out there and vote, please. And that's all for today. I hope everyone has a happy, healthy, and safe weekend. And I say good night and God bless. Oh, come on, music. Of course, BTR is not playing the closing song. Oh, come on, Blog Talk.
Have a good weekend and turn the clocks back.
Oh, yes.
Turn the clocks back tomorrow, too.
Yep, turn the clocks back. And I don't have closing music to end the show with.
We end our show with The Face of the New Democracy by the Dirty Uncles. Sit back and enjoy and have a great evening.
If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan. Health care plan. Health care plan.
Let me tell you how it's gonna work, kid. You're working hard like your parents both did. Everything you earn by breaking your back, we're gonna redistribute when we make our pay tax. Hey, sit down, don't be a jerk, 'cause none deserve it better than the ones who won't work. We're gonna throw away what our forefathers wrote. Use your hard-earned money just to buy a new boat. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left hypocrisy. Little big houses for you and me. Oh, welcome to the place. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so free. Party not to dress themselves for their own cause. We got a pen and telephone to violate all your laws. Political correctness will replace the civil rights. Support religious freedom, bless the praise Jesus Christ. The presence in our pockets doesn't know I'm free. You cannot make a move now that the NSA can see. Don't expect equality, respect, and fair play. The IRS will target those who vote the wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left hypocrisy. It'll be counted for you and me. Oh, welcome 90 seconds. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so free.
Seconds.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you can build that.
10 seconds.
While on the road,